everybody, welcome to the channel. We have a lively chat already. Good to see you all here. And I am your host. I am the layman apologist, or as the Orthobros have recently taken to calling me, I am apparently gay. So, hi, I'm your host, Gay. With me, I have got the Orthodox Philip. Orthodox Philip, please introduce yourself. And by the way, please just let people know I didn't pay you off. You are actually Orthodox because there's been a few accusations that you're not.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, yes.
Interesting. Yeah. I am Orthodox. Yeah, I'm good standing with my church, stay involved. One of my priests is subscribed to me, so that's always really important to me,
Yep.
that they're involved at least in some way. So, yeah, I am Orthodox.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've been Orthodox now for over 10 years, so I'm not a new convert, but still have much to learn, of course. But happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. And I think it's fair to say as well, Philip, like I always attack you in your faith, don't I?
Oh, yeah, you're
Yeah,
vicious.
yeah, vicious, relentless. Well, with me, I also have the other Paul. Paul, welcome, my friend. You're on here quite a bit now, but go ahead and introduce yourself for those who don't know you.
Absolutely. Always love coming back here. Thank you for having me. And to be clear, obviously, layman, you didn't pay Orthodox Philip. That's because I did that myself.
You paid him.
But
That's right.
as to my presence here, with my $7,000, of course.
Yes.
But as for me, for those who don't know, I'm the other Paul. I'm an Anglican, high church, if you want to go specific, with certain evangelical leanings, and philosophically speaking, generally realist, but I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with empiricism, but that's for another time. But I love my church history, I love my theology, and that's basically what my channel is all about. I do any and all videos on any and all topics of church history and theology that I see a need for, or both that I find interesting, but also which I see a need for better, higher quality content. And my ultimate aim is to be intellectually rigorous, but in a way that laymen themselves can actually follow with what I'm saying and even do their own research sometimes. So not just putting out a documentary and saying, hey, trust me, bro, I'll cite like maybe 2 or 3 sources, but otherwise, trust me, bro. I want to give the sourcing for everything I say, so that people can actually do their own reading, do their own study, to satisfy their own conscience, which is a central topic, a central theme of Holy Scripture, the early church, and the Reformation. So that's what I do.
Awesome. Thank you, bro. And with me, as normal, is my co-host Gabe. Gabe, welcome, bro.
Howdy. I'm a Lutheran, so yeah, I guess since we're all sharing our denominations, I'll share mine. I'm Lutheran, part of the LCMS, just casual little Lutheran bro. I do run trinityapologetics.com, and the goal there is to be an ecumenical platform for all Christians, and I'll try to help equip everyone theologically and philosophically.
Sweet. Well, as I'm sure you're all aware, apparently we're all gathered here tonight to attack Orthodoxy. I put this video
Even
out
Philip.
24 hours in advance. Well, I say the video, not the actual video, but announced it. And my goodness, you would have swore I slapped someone's mother. Like I have never seen a bunch of people complain as much in all my life. Now, this has been going on for quite a while, but like the recent state of things has been ridiculous online, like really bad. But Paul, let's start with you. You had a debate not so long ago with Alex Soren. Talk us a little bit through that and all the blowout from it.
Oh, with pleasure. And actually, I can't believe I didn't even think of that. But if we're thinking of examples to actually show about what we're talking about today,
Sure.
I was busy quite a bit earlier, so I didn't really have much time to look. But you mentioning that, I can't believe I didn't even think of it myself. So that's actually something perfect to show. I can even just go through like comment sections and what have you. But in that regard, that debate happened a few weeks ago now, a month plus or so. And it was with the Eastern apologist, Alex Soren. And actually, as a necessary preface that I wanted to say, precisely because the topic of this video is the Ortho Bros, I'm not really going to bring up, like, obviously I have theological arguments against them, but that's not then against them specifically, but against the Eastern system writ large.
Yeah.
But because of this stream, we're specifically talking about the issue of a particular group, which even many other Orthos, or Easterners, as I prefer to call them, to level the playing field, even they will have many problems with them. And so my what I'm talking about here today is strictly about issues with Orthobros, qua Orthobros, not really with the Eastern theology as such. But in that light, at the debate itself, it was on the question of whether iconodulia was an apostolic practice. That is, not whether it's theologically illicit or theologically consistent, and that's a huge and important aspect which many of these Orthobros seem to forget, but the specific historical question of whether the apostles themselves or the church around the apostles in their time actually did the practice. So this thesis, which I even said in my opening statement, is something which iconodules themselves, whether Eastern, Roman, what have you, they could actually agree with my thesis, and sure enough, many do. Mostly on the Roman side, many in the East, they're much more rigorous with their adherence to conciliar minutes and statements, so many of them are uncomfortable with that at best. But be that as it may, it didn't matter with that side. We did the debate, it happened, and, well, putting aside my judgment of how it went, the reactions of the Orthobro fan base were quite illustrative, where obviously they would say, oh, my side won, and other people would say, oh, no, Paul won, blah, blah, blah. That's to be expected. That's very normal. What I found fascinating was just how many of them, and I would argue to an extent, even my opponent himself, Alex Sorin, just did not fully, and not fully, he tried to argue a historical case, but I think at points he missed that it was a historical thing and not my theology and what have you. But just what was impressive was just how much of that audience just did not grasp what the question actually was.
Yeah.
They thought any attempts to find inconsistency in my personal theology had any regard for the question at hand, the actual question of whether the apostles venerated icons. I could be totally Swiss cheese with regards to my theology of icons, but still make a decisive historical case on whether the apostles venerated icons. So you had that. You had many people, many of these Orthobros trying to say, I lost because I allegedly lost theologically, which I don't even believe I did, and many other honest observers say the same. But be that as it may, they say that. But then there's also just countless cases where they have hounded me and those who also believed I won over claims that I never said or over completely misinterpreted statements and like just arguments they just could not grasp, which I tried to make as simple and easy to understand as possible. Sure enough, many people outside of that clique actually understood what I was saying.
Yeah.
But it seems that the Orthobros in particular just could not comprehend certain arguments of mine. Perhaps one of probably the number one case of that is when Alex tried to make the argument of, well, okay, do demons receive honor through idols? Okay. And I said, well, yeah, they can, because that's what demons want. And then he tried to go, aha, but you say that Christ doesn't receive honor through images and icons. How's that consistent? And countless Orthobros took that as, oh, see, Paul thinks that demons receive honor through images, but Christ can't, and that's inconsistent because, reasons. When, if you actually go to the debate itself, in one of the times when Alex wasn't actually fully interrupting me, I actually gave the very basic explanation as to why. And it's the simple fact that what demons think is acceptable worship does not necessarily map onto what Christ thinks is acceptable worship or honor, if you will. We can distinguish them both, whether we're talking full worship or just basic level honor. Just because demons like some practice doesn't mean Christ does. I think, and I made the point after the fact, I think that would actually be quite common sense that you shouldn't make such a potentially blasphemous statement. Hey, demons like this, so why not Christ? Are we not seeing how ridiculous it was? So I said that in the debate, and yet it just went completely over their head. And so that I'm not yapping on too long, that I think is a great encapsulation of the ethos of the Orthobro scene. They have this massive bravado, borderline cult-like following of their leaders. And in the context of actual debates and intellectual disputations, they can't follow many arguments, especially from their opponents, to save their life. And they will take their complete butchering of what their opponents say and parade that as a winning point. They like to look for particular gotcha points and use that as the framing device for an entire debate. That's what they tried to do with this debate. Obviously, in their own bubbles, that's worked, but for I think many objective people outside, it hasn't. But that's what they try to do. They try to get many gotcha points. There are some legitimate gotchas, like especially against certain atheists. Those are very deserved gotchas that Jay Dyer can get on them.
Yeah.
But there's others where they just straight up lie, basically, to make a gotcha. Like with that case, that was an important one. I could even show some examples soon-ish if while someone else is talking, I can kind of look for comments for an example.
Sounds good. Well, thank you for that, Paul. But let's actually get stuck into this a little bit, because I want to distinguish. Philip, let's go to you, my friend. You are an Orthodox Christian. So let's go ahead and set our terms. You are someone I have a lot of respect for. We're developing quite a cool friendship in my mind. We disagree on things theologically, of course. We don't try and, just brush past those things. You'll be on my channel again in the future. Lord willing, maybe I'll be on with you someday. We'll get, plenty of time for talking theology. However, in your opinion, what would you say is the distinction between an Orthodox Christian and an Orthobro?
Yeah, this Orthobro culture, it's kind of funny. It wasn't around when I first started, which was about 11 years ago. It's developed since then, which I find very interesting. So I kind of got to see it in real time develop. I think it's a natural reaction to the age demographics and gender demographics. That's my takeaway. And I've heard other Orthodox commentators notice that okay, there's just an obvious age demographic, late teens, early 20s, young men. They're competitive, they're fired up. And I think that just the way that the numbers are sort of leans the community to have a certain kind of energy online. I don't even necessarily say it's a bad thing. Just in context, it is what it is, And I think the problem is if people look at that, like you're in YouTube, you're watching the Orthobro community, and you say, this is the only representation of Orthodoxy, right? That's a problem with the viewer, not so much with the people who are making this content. To have a much more balanced view, you should definitely go to an Orthodox church, see the people there, talk to the priest there, see something outside of this online corner, and to get a more balanced view of Orthodoxy. That's what I would say, and that's been my experience of being on both sides. I've been on the online community and the in-person community. They are quite different. If you go to an Orthodox church, they're very warm, very welcoming, very friendly. You go online, it doesn't take much to get yourself in a heated debate with somebody. So it's just a little bit different dynamic. I don't necessarily think of it as like a bad thing, but you just got to know what you're dealing with, know your context, and go from there.
Yeah, which I think is a good distinction, because a lot of what I've been saying, and Gabe will come on to you in a minute, and then Paul, you can share whatever you have for us. I think what a lot of people are seeing at the moment, because like I said, I put this live stream out 24 hours in advance, and nearly every threads was the worst. Nearly every single reaction was just, you're gay, you're homosexual, you name it. Stuff, I'm Irish. Stuff like that runs off me like water off a duck's back. You can call me whatever you want. I'm not going to take offense. But the interesting thing about it is, whenever I look at, so Philip, we talked about this roughly before. There's 3 Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox churches near me. They're very unique setups, but I'm more familiar with the European side of Orthodoxy, and it's very different from what I see, especially online, which seems to be a more American brand type of Orthodoxy, where you even have a lot of Orthodox priests online saying, stay away from the Orthobros. Like, even they make that distinction. So it's fascinating to me that even in the comments here, like it's feisty. I like it. Keep it coming. You're not offending us. Ask questions if you want. But it's just such a unique divergence. But Gabe, you have an interesting story here if you want to go ahead and share what happened to you recently on X.
Oh, yeah, the recent one?
Yeah.
Oh, dear goodness. Oh, man. So I just watched a Ruslan video where he basically responded to Jay Dyer getting very upset that he had an Orthodox catechumen on a panel that just was discussing the differences between their traditions, basically. And Ruslan made some good points. He's like, listen, y'all are arrogant, y'all are annoying to deal with. We just don't want to really engage with you guys. And this blood sports rhetoric, we're just not wanting to deal with it. And I was like, yeah, no, those are good points. So like I do with a lot of other videos, when I find a video I really think makes good points, I clicked share, went to X, and I put my little comment. I was like, yeah, in this video by Ruslan, it was a good video. I think he had some good points. Oh my goodness gracious. Everyone started flooding in, and like, I kid you not, for like 2 days straight, there was one guy for like 2 days straight. I want to know what his screen time is, because it's
Yeah.
probably 48 hours in a day, which is impossible, by the way. But he basically just came in, just responding to every single person who was like at all not instantly opposed to me or Ruslan. And he was just going off on them. I'm like, dude, touch grass or something, please. But it was just a ton of replies like that. And it was a couple days of that. And
Yeah.
luckily, I mean, I say luckily, I wouldn't really care either way, but I look at like any post Ruslan makes anymore, and he just has them flooding in and calling him gay or saying that all his posts are gay coded or whatever. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be quite blunt. That's like middle school like slang to me. As far as I'm aware, that's like the insults that I would have been throwing around as a middle schooler. So
Yeah.
when I hear them throwing out being like, "Oh, you're gay" or "you're gay coded" or whatnot, I'm like, that's kind of pathetic. Like that's what you came up with. Like, come on, get a little bit of an original wit to you. But
Yeah.
I know. So that was the recent story. I've got other ones where they were
Well, it all
went off, but,
culminated in
yeah.
what though?
Oh, Ruslan going not after, but just explaining why he doesn't want to debate Jay Dyer, at least in a space or
Yeah. Well, specifically, I
sports
mean,
online
what
thing.
happened with you? Like, who ended up blocking you?
Oh, you wanted me to share that? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Dyer himself blocked me. Here, I can screen share if y'all want the proof.
You
Hold
are
on.
cut off from all graces, my friend. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know
see,
what to say.
this is, as I said, this is not an attack on orthodoxy, but like this is the type of, you know, as Paul said a while ago, it's cultic in the sense that, Gabe, I do not see your screen, my friend.
It
You
is. I can see it in the panel below.
Yeah, I have it added to the scene, but it's somehow invisible.
Oh, great! Here we go. We got Le Boomer Tech again.
Oh, there we go. It's appeared.
Oh,
Hey.
well, that's
Interesting.
tiny,
It's
but
equal.
there we go.
There we go.
Yep. Daddy Dyer has blocked me. I have been blocked by the great Jay Dyer himself. Never responded to me, at least not that I could see.
Yeah.
He may have responded somewhere.
No,
out there,
he normally
but
doesn't.
he just
And
blocked me. So
yeah, and this is why I wanted to go before Paul shares his stuff. This is what I want to say. Like, this is exactly what Paul said a while ago. There is like a cultic mentality here where Jay Dyer specifically, if you disagree with him in any regards, he will block you, no questions asked. Which, who cares? But it's all of the Orthobros that flock to defend his honor, and then they run to call everyone else gay. It's like, you sure?
yeah.
You're not projecting a little bit? So this is some of the stuff we want to talk about tonight. But anyway, Paul, if you want to bring up your screen, and then I will help us see if we can get this up. Good to see you all commenting. Dyer low-key blocks anyone who mildly disagrees with him, so not exactly a very unique experience. True
Yep.
that. True
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Briefly on that exact point before I share my screen directly, that's exactly what happened with me years ago. I have no idea why. I randomly found myself blocked by Jay Dyer like 2 or 3 years ago. No clue why. I think I might have counter-signaled Orthodoxy somehow, and he just got a little bit triggered by it. No interaction. Then one day randomly, he unblocked me, DM'd me on Twitter and said, "Do you want to debate?" And I said, "No thanks." And then he blocked me again right after. Like, okay.
Yeah, he
little
does that a lot.
boy, insensitive much. But so he did that. Actually, I wonder if I can still see the DM. Oh, I can't pull up the DMs for some reason. Oh, well, he must have changed settings. But they would be there if I could just DM him again.
Yeah.
Be that as it may, I'll share my screen now. Here we go. I haven't used this service before, so it should be, let's see, this one?
Yep.
Yep. All right. Let me just zoom in. All right. It should be here.
Yep. Bear with me. Just transfer this over.
Well, in the merry month of May, from me, oh my God. There we go. All right. So this is the one that recently set it off for me. So other than the Alex debate and all the losers going crazy about that, this is one that set off. So this is like the tweet that Jedi did that kickstarted his latest struggle session, whining about Ruslan, because Ruslan organized this 3-man panel. Which it wasn't even a formal debate, even though, as Ruslan explained, people can look at all that from Ruslan, find his channel, find his response video. And when you actually look at the panel itself, it was definitely a discussion. It wasn't like a debate, strictly speaking. Basically something you have around a campfire. But he didn't like that there was Gavin Ortland, so heavy hitter Reformation apologist, and then you had Trent Horn, heavy hitter Romanist apologist. Yep. But then you had Ruslan's, friend, co-host or colleague or whatever, who's an Orthodox, but also just a catechumen. And so understandably, many people thought this is a very unbalanced matchup, right? And so understandably, I could understand, I even explained this in replies, that like anyone just complaining about that unbalanced matchup, like, look, fair enough, it's definitely not equal. Obviously the catechumen guy, he wasn't forced to do it. He knew he was going up against, and he thought he was competent, and guess what? He was competent. When you actually watch the panel, he was actually quite competent. Good on him. So really shouldn't be too much complaining there, but I can understand, fair enough. You should rather want people of equal large calibers, you know? Now, Jay Dyer complained about that. He said, you pit a catechumen against Ortland and an RC? Seriously, dude? Obviously insinuating that it's a very unfair matchup. Okay. Now, again, here's the thing. Coming from anybody else, I'd say, yeah, fair enough comment, move on with my day. I saw that it was coming from Jay Dyer, and I immediately thought, okay, I'm sorry. This is the guy, I mean, as I explained right here, he spends hours every week dunking on unlearned Protestants and Roman Catholics in call-in debates, and from that, using that to propagandize against their traditions, the very thing he's upset with Ruslan doing. And so I just simply called out hypocrisy. Pot, meat, kettle, rules for thee, but not for me. Do as I say, not as I do. It's okay when we do it, etc., etc. I just called that out. And it was very cheeky, quick, to the point, move on, right? I expected to have the backlash. So I'm not going to say like, oh, I expected to have backlash, but I didn't expect this. No, I expected everything that was to come, but it's just funny to see it actually happen, right? So I did that, and the hate came through immediately. Now, it's one thing, and this is basically the summary of the whole thing, just me against all of the followers of Photius, or Philip, in 2026, in this year of our Lord. Basically carrying the whole team here for a bit. But I had a lot of responses. So on the one hand, there's people who tried to actually argue the point, and who are Orthobros as well. I think, like, look, they're basically making up their standards just to accommodate for their leader. But that's a more involved argument. I'll leave that to the side. Many other of their comments were basically this. Your church is headed by a woman. And you argue in bad faith rather than just having a different opinion. Yep. And blah, 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 blah. Cope and Steve, BDW, you're fat. And then, why don't you debate Daddy Dyer like a man? And on and on and on in the comments. There's so much of it everywhere. The Orthobros piled on me for a very simple critique. Some of them were more sober and trying to argue that he's not being inconsistent. Yep. I replied to them, and even though they were more sober, at least to start with, I think they're very much making up their morality. But that's the overall point. I just simply critiqued their daddy, which is basically what he is. He's their daddy. Yep. I critiqued him in a very simple, quick, to the point post, and they went I don't know what your policy on naughty swear words, quote unquote, is, but they went crazy. Yep. They went 8S. But yeah, so they did that. And even in this particular case, I want to look at here. So this is one of Jay Dyer's acolytes, one of his mini-me's, who was very consciously imitating him in certain respects. I just had a back and forth with him showing like, well, for one, he crashed out about me a bit, like, holy S dude, blah, 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 stuff like that, going crazy about me. And I just kept responding to his points, showing how his distinction was completely irrelevant. And how did he end it? I said, legendary effort by this guy because he posted some random video of a guy with Down syndrome playing the guitar. So, okay, that's an argument, I guess. Yep. And I said, anywho, I take this as a concession that I'm right, because he eventually just stopped responding to arguments. This is what he said. The ratio will speak for itself, bud. your position is so obviously absurd to anyone with basic cognitive ability. You should have left it alone. Now you're crashing out. So there's two very fascinating things here that are revealing about the Orthobro group. This is just one example of that in Ben right here. Ben went by Ben Luigi, now goes by Ben Michael.
Yep.
This is two things that's very common among them. And we're going to see another example of the gaslighting in the second point here in particular in a sec. First, the ratio will speak for itself. I'm sorry, as a ratio and argument now, like well, for one, when you actually look further on, I actually just edged out his ratio, so he doesn't even have that anymore if you look closely by like one vote.
Yep.
But second, that's what, to this Orthobro in particular, but you can see the pattern with almost all of them as well, their argument, their highest motive of credibility is the ratio. Mm-hmm. And this is why I just explicitly said to him that I asked him rhetorically, are you an intellectual prostitute? That's a rhetorical question. I genuinely believe this guy in particular, Ben Michael, and many Orthobro apologists, not all of them, but many, are just intellectual prostitutes. And especially their followers. That's what I say. Intellectual prostitutes in the sense that they make arguments not for the sake of actually clearly and with precision demonstrating the truth. In charity, I think many of them think they're doing that, but in actuality, in their passions, their highest end is climbing the social ladder. The fame, the perception of victory, of looking like you're coming out on top. That is very clearly what he thinks. They genuinely think winning the crowd is winning the argument. That is literally what this statement is. The ratio will speak for itself. Second, accusing me of crashing out. I simply critique their leader. They dogpile me. And I respond to them. And yeah, I get heated with some of them, absolutely. But that's only with me matching energy, basically.
Hey, matching energy, fine, man.
That's it. That's the key thing, matching energy with them. Apparently, Ben choosing to reply with holy S, dude, that's not him crashing out. But me responding, daring to defend myself, that is a crash out. That's actually a super, super common gaslight you see from Orthobros. When they pile on you, when they absolutely try to wreck you, that's just normal polemics. But when you try to defend yourself, and if you get a bit heated during it, even rightly, then they'll step back and say, bro, calm down, bro. You're crashing out, bro. Calm down. I have one more example to show on that line, but if anyone wants to say something first.
Well, yeah, while you're doing that, let me just say this. Like, I'm... Philip, forgive me, brother. I did not ask your age beforehand. I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I am one of the older guys here. Like, I am 35. I do not like this whole idea of ratio and, cope and see. I'm going to be honest. When I hear people say that online to me, I just honestly look at them and go, my little cousin is 10 times smarter than you. If this is the line of argumentation, you're going down. Now, let me just be upfront. My little cousin ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. So if you're coming along and you're saying something like, "Oh, ratio to like something I've said or Paul said," in what world is that an argument? In what world is that a rebuttal? But yet in this world, it's apparently a rebuttal. That's why I say this idea of the Orthobro thing is very weird and strange to me. And Romans 8 brought it up there. Gabe and I are very familiar with this. In a lot of ways, a lot of this stuff is what Muslims do. Muslims do a lot of this stuff. Now, Philip, before Paul continues on, let's hear a little bit from you here, just so we're not seeming like we're just constantly trashing, because you are honestly someone, if people watch your videos, whether you agree with them or disagree with them, there is no chance you will walk away from one of Philip's videos and say he did not put effort in and he did not try to have a well thought out argument. So, Philip, whenever, and again, I'm not asking you to denounce anyone or anything of the sort, but whenever you see this type of stuff, like, what goes through your mind?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the Muslim thing, because it's the way that I see it. It's not so much an Orthodox issue. It's something to do with the online environment. Muslims do it. I've seen really nasty atheists online for years and years and years. I don't know if it's just the fact that they're behind a screen, they're not behind an in-person they're not behind a real person. They're behind a screen, keyboard warriors. I don't know what it is. But I think the question that I would have is there a higher concentration of these kinds of people in the Orthodox community? I think that's the question I would have. I'm not typically on the receiving end of this stuff as an Orthodox person, but all in all, I don't really. I kind of do my own thing, and I have my own Orthodox friends in person who I see at church, and I'm happy with that. So I guess I wouldn't know too much about what it's like to be on their receiving end.
Yeah.
But I would just say there's something about the online world and being behind a screen, being behind a keyboard. I think actually I want to mention a video by Kyle, Kyle Orthodox. He made a video called Dangers of Orthobros, and I highly recommend it because he's somebody who I've seen developed so much in this area since he first started. He's matured a lot. And I think he hits a lot of nails on the head. He talks about how a lot of these people are very, have a lot of vigor of the faith, and they're new to the faith and they want to share it, but they don't know how to share that in a healthy manner.
Yeah.
But the good thing is he passed through that phase, and he's making the argument that a lot of the Orthobros will pass through that phase as well. So I think that maybe what we're seeing is an influx of young, vigorous new converts, and we're kind of feeling the heat of that. My hope is that in a few years, they'll mature, they'll balance out, and we'll start to see a healthier online Orthodox community. Again, I can't really judge how bad it is. I'm not usually on the receiving end of it, but that would be my prediction to forecast. That eventually it will even out. We're kind of in the beginning of this convert surge and feeling the energy of that.
I think there's definitely an aspect, like, because I've even said this to Gabe before too. I do think there is, in certain areas, it's almost like a cage stage for them. There's this fresh, I have converted, I am going to, but the issue with it is, as Paul said like a while ago, it always results in a crash out, and whenever you point that out to them, they project back. It's a very weird space. But Gabe, just before we go back to Paul, could you try and find that Orthodox Kyle video? Maybe Philip could send it for you as well. We'll bring that up afterwards if we've got time. But Paul, what else did you want to show us, bro?
Yes, so one other thing that's resultant from this same thread, one person in particular, I want to see if I can find the specific comment. I think I actually ended up blocking the guy, because like when some people are just super obstinate, I end up just blocking them anyway. One guy early on replied with, "Oh, you're just seething that you lost the debate with Soren." And I simply replied with, well, just to obviously defend myself and to do some counter propaganda, because obviously that's what we're doing, to be honest. Yeah. I said, no, I didn't. And second, you're completely dodging my post. So that's kind of typical of you guys. Eventually, Alex himself got in and he said, dude, come on, let's not relitigate the debate. It's over, it happened, let's move on. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm sorry, I have your fans coming in here trying to taunt me about it, and you're telling me not to defend myself? Like, stuff off, okay? I'm mostly thinking that I eventually say I don't really address him as such, but as things develop, Alex decides to post this. He decides to, he points out a couple of screenshots where I talk about, I use the word diorite. That's one of the words along. That's basically the other keyword alongside Orthobro for this group, diorite. Not the mineral in Minecraft that you mine and you use for cool looking floors. It is the just J-Di. It's a diorite. Someone who follows his sect, basically the classic old church practice of like naming the heresiarch of a sect and identifying him that way. And the second point where I use diorite. So I use the term twice. And what does Alex do? He screenshots them and he makes a post. Is Jay Dyer in the room with you right now at the other poll? And then says, Dyer derangement syndrome is a real thing. If you start seeing him everywhere, seek help immediately. He must have really done a measure on you guys. So obviously, and again, Australian here, so I'm not like, oh, Alex, how dare you? Oh, I'm not clutching my pearls about that. I think obviously Alex is wrong and he's trying to do a personal slap at me, but I understood that even with us two in particular, that's just what happens. So he tries to do a little personal slap at me to get a propaganda win. I'm going to do it back at him, or even point out his actual inconsistency. So whatever, that happens. But here's what happens with that. I respond somewhere in here. Oh, sorry, I actually quote tweet him and I say, "Are you denying that diarism as such actually exists?" And you're one of his acolytes, basically. I get into all that, and eventually it ends with some heavy irony. Well, actually, the first funny thing is that when he said, "Is Dyer in the room right now?" someone pointed out in the comments here, Dyer was actually in the thread. So yes, so yeah, you kind of missed that. He got in there, defend his honor. But here's what eventually happened. Alex decided to block me.
Yep.
And he blocked me because I responded to his post, and I was getting a little sassy with him. He was getting offended by my accusation that he's basically just riffing off a lot of Dyer. He's an acolyte of Dyer. He's trying to defend himself, and I'm just like, look, this is just what we're doing. Like he's throwing personal jabs at me. I'm throwing personal jabs at him. We're not going into like death threats or anything like that. But that's just what's happening. And as an Australian and you as an Irishman, obviously used to it, it's not ideal. I'd rather this stuff not happen. But like, look, when it happens, it happens. So we were doing it. We were going at it, as happens. And I just kept pushing on how like, look, you're using the same aesthetics. You're using the same really bad arguments from Dyer. And your cross-examinations, which you claim to get from the courtroom, happen to look exactly like Dyer's cross-examinations. And look, as much as I'm not a lawyer, I have watched a lot of successful cases, both in streams and in real life, and I know that good cross-examinations do not look like what Alex did in our debate, or which Jay Dyer does very frequently, where they distract, make things irrelevant. One counterexample to that is the O.J. Simpson case, funnily enough, where his defense team obfuscated enough and swayed the jury enough towards a false conclusion. There's other factors behind that. But I say that, and then Alex decides to say, "Paul, I never called you names or attacked you personally. What gives? Have you not received enough attention? Stop coping. It's really unbecoming. We done, dude." Okay, that... right after he made a post about me saying that I have Dyer derangement syndrome, that I'm literally delusional. I'm literally delusional about things, okay? So, yes, he actually did call me names and attack me personally. Again, I wasn't getting all sissy and upset about it. I was just throwing back, both with some rhetoric and some logic, right? Yep. That's what was happening. Suddenly, because I don't buckle like many of his opponents, like he's used to in that circle. I don't buckle. I just keep going at it and at it, responding to everything. He eventually thinks, "Oh, that's so offensive. You're attacking me personally," when he did the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So that's another rule of the Orthobros. It is okay for them to mock you, for them to call you delusional, for them to attack your reputation. But as soon as you dare to do the same back to them, even to a tiny bit, suddenly they're on the moral crusade. How dare you? You're bad faith. You attacked me personally. And then they block you.
That one's
That
very
is another
common.
pattern.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to say just quickly, that's very common. I see the bad faith one a lot after you've maybe just been through a thread where you've been called every name under the sun. And again, I'm Irish. Call me whatever you want. I don't get offended. But like,
Exactly.
if I clap back at you, why are you then getting offended and calling
Exactly.
me bad faith?
That's literally why I said this in the post where I reposted about it, where I accurately summarized Soren as saying, I can encourage the dog pile against you, because that's another thing. He wasn't telling his people, guys, calm down about Paul. No, he was joining in on it. And I was like, well, okay, that's how you want to do it. That's how you want to do it. So he can encourage the dog pile against me. He can label me with Dyer derangement syndrome. But how dare I accuse him of copying Dyer? And that's why I said, like, with your point, you said you're Irish, you're used to it. Same with us Australians, and obviously not a coincidence, we have Irish heritage. Alex wouldn't survive a night in an Australian pub. Toughen up, princess. Some people, for some reason, interpreted that as like getting into a bar fight, when I clearly just meant no. It's just like...
Yeah.
It's literally just the rhetoric and the insults.
It's the culture. Like, Paul, you can speak to Australia. Gabe, I want to hear your thoughts on this in a minute. But like, the Irish culture is the type of... Whoop, I don't know what happened.
I stopped sharing this room.
Oh, you're all right. No worries. It's fine. The Irish culture...
Do you want to equalize me? Because it feels a bit awkward.
Yep, don't worry. I'm going to fix it now. It's just the screen is acting up. Where are we? There we go. There we go. My bad. Yeah, so anybody that's read that like that. Like it's clear they just don't know the culture, because here, if I was to go into a bar with my mates, you will be insulted left, right, and center. Why? Because people hate you? No, it's actually how we banter over here. It's how we show affection. So, like, you really throw barbs at your mates. Imagine what you would do with someone that you're not all that friendly with. So, whenever you say he's not going to survive, yeah, it's not talking about physical violence. But anyway,
Yes.
because we've got a good few comments here, I've been putting a lot of them up as we go. Folks, if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask. But Gabe, what's your thoughts on all this? You're also, you
Well,
popped up that video as well for me, didn't you? Yeah, you did.
yeah, I put them in the comment section.
I'll share that in a minute.
But yeah, no, I just, my thoughts instantly go to when I initially was sharing when I shared that post, I actually had people who I'm friends with personally who are Eastern Orthodox, but not of the Orthobro persuasion. And they actually reached out to me and were like, "Hey, I'm quite offended right now. Are you trying to like say that there's a problem with Eastern Orthodoxy?" I'm like, "No, no, no, no. Just the Orthobros. It's a movement within Eastern Orthodoxy." But so I have been trying to evolve the definition quite a bit, and I think that we're doing a pretty good job at summarizing exactly what an orthobro is.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate having Philip here because that, at least makes me feel a little bit better about having, the three branches of Protestantism up here. And then, if it was just the three of us, people would be like, "Oh, they're just making fun of, Orthodoxy." And then we're like, "Well, no, we got Mr. Philip here who can
Oh, remember,
at least put
he's
his
not
input."
real Orthodox. Remember, Gabe?
Yes, you're right. I'm
Yes.
sorry. My apologies. Philip
Oh,
is
no.
actually super based Lutheran.
Oh no.
He
That's
just
why.
he just got those icons just the other day just to stick up in the. He knew it was coming
Hey,
on. So he was like,
Lutherans are
"Stick those
okay
up."
with icons, but
That's true.
How do you do, fellow Orthodox?
but no, I was getting a lot of personal messages from a few guys that I'm friends with, and I know that they're not. They might like watching Jay Dyer's videos because they think he's cool or has some good debate points. Heck, I like watching a Jay Dyer video every now and again. It's just his rhetoric and like the mob mentality that he tends to have around him tends to be the problem, and that's what I think we're trying to point out here. And
Yeah.
I mean, you have some really good examples up there, Paul, about how they're just not taking it. They can dish it out, but they can't take it. They can continually dogpile you, but you can't do the same to them. And back to what Romans 8 Shaman said, it's literally just Islamic behavior, or I don't want to say Islamic behavior, but it's the same type of behavior we laymen and I tend to see from Muslims all the time. Is you at all defend yourself, and they will run away. They will run at you screaming about how Jesus is not God and so on and so forth. And then you defend yourself, even using like their sources, using the Bible, and they just run away screaming, "Oh, woe is me. This guy's being mean." Like, it's like, I don't know how to put it outside of the way I always put it. The 11th commandment, "Thou shalt be nice," is not an actual commandment in the Bible. So I don't have to just be a nice pushover. And that's kind of one of the things I also would like to push a lot of people to do, whether you're Eastern Orthodox, Protestant, Catholic, no matter where you're at. I would say stop being a pushover Christian and just letting people push over.
Mhm.
You can easily push back and do it without being sinful or without, crossing the line per se. And you can match energies and you can easily handle yourself and not look like a little pushover, because I think that a lot of this behavior comes from a reaction to, I would say, forms of like liberalism that they see. So I'd say a lot of it's probably a lot of Jay Dyer's followers are probably evangelicals who were at a big mega church, and mega churches are generally very feminine churches.
Yeah.
So they're going from that, and then they're jumping into Eastern Orthodoxy, which is a very masculine tradition of Christianity. And then they're seeing the person who got them there was Jay Dyer, and they're seeing how he's going about it, and he becomes kind of their idol or their icon for that. And then they're jumping in and they're doing that. And then the moment you push back, because you might be like me, coming from a moderate form that's masculine in most areas and feminine in some areas, like I would say most of all Christianity is, even including Eastern Orthodoxy. But and they just run away, and they don't know how to do it outside of insulting you or leaning on their other bros to go and ratio you or whatever, and goes right back into that ratio culture. You see it within even liberalism here in the United States. That's exactly what I'll see a lot of leftists doing when they make a claim. They'll be like, "Oh, well, it'll be like a pro-life argument," and you're like, "Well, the baby is biologically a human being," and they're like, "Well, it is, but it's not the same. We don't judge it by that." And it's like, okay, so you just conceded the argument, and then they're like, "No, I didn't," and then they get everyone to dogpile on you and just flood you with a whole bunch of comments, and it's. So I want to make sure I'm not just saying it's Islamic behavior is what I'm trying to get out there. But yeah, it's definitely some. So I don't know the proper word for it, but it is some like behavioral thing that you kind of see, a kind of a mob mentality, or don't want to say cult mentality, because I think that could cross a line and make it seem like I'm saying that they're all like a cultist that worship Jay Dyer.
I think it's a mix of things, but to be honest, I just want to bring this comment up because this is what I got, and I'm not saying about this person in particular, by the way, so don't feel like I'm attacking you, friend. Today on Threads, I got a lot of comments. Again, live stream wasn't even out, and apart from all the "you're gay" comments, all the whatever else, he's not real Orthodox, the other Paul, this, that, and the other, who's that guy, Gabe, like you name it, all that sort of stuff. I don't actually have an issue with, I think a lot of Orthodox, or not even Orthodox, we'll stick with Orthobro, but I think a lot of Orthobros think that if we are critiquing them, it's, oh, they say bad words. No, that's not my complaint. My biggest complaint about guys that are in this type of like cultic behavior, it is that like we will protect Jay Dyer at any cost. He can do no wrong. You talk about him, we're going to dogpile you. Now, here's an example of where this got really bad. Again, I'm going to say allegedly, even though you can find this over on X. Allegedly, it was Orthobros that were doxing Ruslan's wife and children. Alex Soren even had to put out a statement that said, "Hey guys, stop doing this. It's not good." Now, I don't care what group you're a part of. If you are doxing women and children, you aren't a man. You are not a man. You are a weak, pathetic little thing. And if you were to stand face to face in front of a real man, you would piss yourself. Just saying that because it's true.
At that point, I think I have total liberty to use this word. At that point, you're just a little bitch. That's exactly what it is.
Well, yeah. Anyway, Philip, I skipped over this a moment ago, my friend, but we'll bring you back into the conversation. I see Colton's commented something here as well, and there's a question for Paul. But Philip, I believe this is directed towards you. Most well-adjusted representative of Orthodox I have seen. Respect. There we go.
I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad that comes off that way. I hope and I pray that I give a good impression. Of course, Orthodoxy does not stand or fall on me, but if I can do my part in giving it a authentic representation, then I'm very happy to do that.
And that's the thing. It doesn't stand or fall on the Orthobros either, but unfortunately, they are giving Orthodoxy such a bad image. Like, such a bad image. But they don't see it as a bad image because to them, they're in this like little cage stage of, hey, look, I'm here with my buddies. We're in the trenches together. We are so based. We're ratioing people. Dudes, grow up, go get married, have kids, love and serve the Lord, and stop acting like a little child online, because that's really what it is. Now, Paul, question for you: is Alex Soren an Orthobro?
Yeah, duh. Yeah. Very obviously. Hence why I spent like a good 10 minutes or 5 minutes or so just talking about him as an example of that. Yeah, absolutely. It goes without saying. He's one of the if Dyer is the general, Soren is one of the lieutenants alongside Ben Michael, Cleave to Antiquity, a few other guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
We'll add on the I will add quickly on the point as well with the well-adjusted orthos. It's very funny where they try to say, "Oh, well, because they've done this already." I'm pretty sure if, like, a few of them have done that in your, like, since your announcement, exactly. But the particular idea that you're just attacking the Ortho bros because you're desperate because you're losing against Orthodoxy or whatever. Now, the obvious problem is that we're not bringing this up about the intellectual fountainheads upon whom the Ortho bros rely for their arguments. People like Michael Garton, Jonathan Pajot, Father John Bear to an extent, even though they like to say, "Oh, ecumenist, blah, blah, blah." Big figures like that, whom the Ortho bros rely upon for their best intellectual arguments, and I mean really rely upon, because in the end, many of these Ortho bros, they couldn't do genuine intellectual investigation to save their life, so they rely on a few figureheads. But we're not going after those guys. Michael Garton, he's a very lovely, wholesome guy. Same with Jonathan Pajot, and yeah, they get on fine and chummy with the Ortho bros, but I don't even do a guilt by association thing like that. It is what it is. Yeah. But the fact is, if that was true, then we'd be trying to find some fault in those figures. But we're not. We're attacking a very public and obvious cult.
Yep. Because the other thing too is, just before I come back to Colton's comment, again, the rhetoric they use of, cope and seethe, which again, I just look at that and I'm like, you are a literal child. But it's also just very stupid, because whenever you say it to someone like me, Orthodoxy doesn't really have a foothold over here in Ireland. Like, there are 3 churches in the entire country of Ireland. Now, Ireland's not massive, but even in those congregations, it's very, very small. So whenever you say to someone like me, "Oh, you're just annoyed because, Protestants are converting," not over here, they ain't. Like, it's a very American centric type thing, at least what I see, because even European Orthodoxy over here looks nothing like this online Orthobro thing I see. But Gabe, I see you technically already answered Colton, but he says, does the ratio thing find its origin in Simmer culture? I have got no idea, Colton. That type of thing is just, I find it dumb, to be honest. Gabe, could you go ahead and load up the video of Orthodox Kyle, and we'll go and play that in a minute. Paul, did you have anything else you want to bring up before we move into that?
Well, actually, while you're getting to that, I did want to ask, because I want to hear more from Philip especially. Yep. I wonder, because one thing I genuinely like about certain aspects of Orthodox pastoral theology, other points I'm not a fan of, but others I'm a big fan of, is the articulation of the passions, where you have these things, the passions, and you have to control them and suppress them as much as you can in order to get to a true and genuine contemplation of God. In your experience, from what you've seen, like, does the Orthobro crowd have any actual, even basic conception of that very basic category of Orthodox pastoral theology?
Well, I would say, again, if you go to an Orthodox church in person, it's like Orthodoxy 101. Literally, if you go to my church, you start the catechetical process. One of our lessons is about nepsis, this sort of even keel teaching, that you don't go to one extreme or the other with your passions. This is a very important part of our spiritual life. And I'm not going to point fingers at all the Ortho bros, because I'll be pointing fingers at myself. I think I was also much like them in the very beginning of my spiritual journey. So I don't fault them for being in that phase. We can only hope and pray that they develop a more Orthodox approach to these issues, because it's of course not a part of Orthodoxy to be uncharitable and to not talk to other people who are not Orthodox, to not engage with them. It's quite the opposite. We are supposed to be lights in the world and share the Orthodox faith and be open to people who are interested in it and to leave a good impression. Now online, like I said, I don't see a whole lot of I don't get the treatment that you guys would get as an Orthodox person. Mm-hmm. But it sounds very familiar to other groups that I've dealt with, like Muslims, like atheists. So I know what that's like. It's very uncomfortable, but I would say, the Orthodox response would be to let it, roll off your shoulders, pray for these people that they develop spiritually. There is a lot of hope, because people like myself, people like Orthodox Kyle, we develop it. Spiritual life is not a straight line. there is a development that happens, and it's I think it's very well known within the Orthodox churches and the clergy that this is a thing. That people get overly zealous, people get aggressive. Some of these people don't even have a church that they're connected to; they're just online all the time, and that's
a good point
to them, which is a big problem, because how are you going to be living the fullness of the Orthodox faith without an Orthodox church, without a priest, without the sacraments? So I'm hoping and praying for the Orthodox community that this is a stepping stone phase for the Orthodox community. So that would be my, I don't know if that answered your question. That'd be my take on it.
Can you bring up Ad Gloriam Yesu's latest comment?
I will now apologize in 1 second. I just want to first of all, Philip, I just want to apologize for the insult you just received. I do not share that opinion.
Oh my, yeah. I literally, I was gonna make that comment too, because I literally was like, no, there's no. That's just being.
I appreciate it.
I can't unsee and unhear, because you both look like him and you're extremely calm demeanor. Oh man, if you could just master an Australian accent, bro, that would be a hilarious troll.
Well,
by the way, I have to say, being called a follower of Photius is a compliment to me, and you can call me that as much as you want. Just feel free. Just wanted to say
Yes.
Paul, is this a comment?
Yes. That's comment.
God bless you.
Cholesterol life.
Igloo cortisol life, indeed. Folks, apologies if I miss any of your questions. Please do put a Q with a question mark or something just so I can see it. But anyway, Gabe, you've got this up on screen, so let me get this rearranged, and we will go ahead and react to this. We're not obviously going to get through all of it, but we could get through some of it at least. I think I just...
Good day, everybody. This is the other Paul. Welcome to my channel, and we're going to continue the argument against iconodulia. So,
no chance, my friend. Anyway, right, Gabe, go ahead and get ready, and we will react to this a little bit.
All right.
It's muted.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
It's muted on the YouTube side. Yeah.
Yep, my bad. Wii Sports.
Today I want to talk about the dangers of Orthobro. So we often hear this term, and it's a derogatory term. And so let's first define it. An Orthobro is a convert to Orthodox Christianity who is normally overzealous for the faith, constantly wanting to debate. They want to spread the truth. And I think every convert to Orthodoxy is aware of this term, is aware of this concept of being overzealous when you're converting to the faith. And it really isn't a surprise. It's not a mystery of why this phenomenon exists. It's because you have a bunch of immature young men in high school and college. They are lost. They have no hope, no meaning in their life. And they have finally found the most meaningful thing, Christ and his church. And it's so beautiful and glorious, and it's something we can all partake in. So of course, we're excited about that. You know, being a young man and finding the most meaningful thing when the world is so confusing. We haven't been handed down any good traditions. It's like everything we've been handed down actually leads to death and destruction. So finding the true faith in Orthodoxy, it's exciting. Young men are very action-oriented. This is why they go and start wars. They start revolutions. They start a business. They go and do something. Being a Christian, that's what we're called to do, is go and pick up our cross, is to be a martyr for Christ. And so these young men are seeing all this evil in the world. So it's like death to the world. And so the war that they see is that it's us, the Christians, versus the world. And there is some truth to that we are called to not be like the world as Christian.
Okay, right. There's a couple of things I would say there. First of all, he's been very charitable. I don't actually know this guy. Seems like a couple of you guys do know him, so maybe I need to take in more of his content. But initially, whenever he says, you've got these young men, all they want to do is kind of share the gospel. Unfortunately, that's the opposite of what I see with the Orthobros. With the Orthobros, what I often see is you're gay, you're this, you're that, the other. If you go to their timelines, it is like very rarely do I see anything Christ related. What I do see is a lot of attacks on, again, this is going to be the distinction. obviously the Eastern Orthodox Church has a very different view on who is in the church and who isn't, right? Issue with that is what you see so often with the Ortho Bros is the most uncharitable texts. Like that video, bear in mind, I put the live stream up yesterday, and yes, it said Ortho Bro problem, but the amount of them that just automatically assumed that it was just going to be bashing, 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 because that's what they're so used to doing to other people that they expect it in return. Like I don't know what you guys think about that, but like very charitable take from this guy Kyle, but I don't know if I agree with him.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the problem is so he's seems to be thinking that they're going from being a secular atheist, Buddhist, Hindu type to becoming Eastern Orthodox. When, from my experience, a lot of it is just evangelicals who don't actually know anything. They've never really been catechized. They go to a non-denominational church. They were taught by Pastor Ben, formerly cleaved to antiquity, now what is it? What did he change his channel name to?
It's still clear to antiquity.
Oh, well then never mind. My point.
He's never changed. Yeah.
Okay, I thought he changed his name for some reason. But either way, and so usually it's that, but they don't go to church. They're not actually under a spiritual leader, and because of that, you tend to see a lot of those converts. I think I'll share this later, so remind me. But I have a point on like converting to Eastern Orthodoxy. Because a lot of them will make comments about converting to Eastern Orthodoxy, and it tells me very quickly that they probably either haven't converted themselves or they don't understand converting to Eastern Orthodoxy, or quite frankly any tradition across Christianity. Because that's a future point I'll save for later. But
Okay.
I would just assume that a lot of it is probably young men who they listen to Jay Dyer, they think about it. You know, they're listening to Jay Dyer, they're listening to Andrew Wilson. Both are pretty logically driven guys. They can articulate an argument pretty well. Like, I've listened to both of them in debates. They're pretty good at logically lining things up.
Yep.
Young men tend to have a very logically broken up brain where whatever flows logically is what we look for. Because of that, I think a lot of them just say, okay, I'm Orthodox now. And all of a sudden, they're Eastern Orthodox. They might go to a parish one time for a photo shoot and then never go back again.
Oh, shoot.
That's, I wouldn't be surprised if there were people who did that. But either way, it's just, that's kind of what I expect when I hear it. So when he's talking about how they're going from nothing to now everything, and now it just, to me, it doesn't seem like that is, at least from my vantage point, what is going on. From my vantage point, it looks like guys who are looking for intellectual parties to join, or clans to be part of, or groups to be part of the group that they find a group that seems really powerful because it's got a massive backing, it's got a really tight brotherhood.
Yeah.
It's got, like, I don't want to say, I'll say it again. It is like Islam. Why do a lot of people convert to Islam? Because it's, well, you got a massive backing of people who will back you, basically. And I'm meaning, like, how else do you explain how Muhammad Hijab and all these other big Muslim accounts have millions of followers, or maybe not millions plural, but like 1 million followers? And, they've got that massive population, and then, they can send out those people. Like, why is it I go on Threads and I post one reply to a Muslim and I get flooded with 500 replies about how I don't understand Islam and I've never read the Quran or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And the same exact thing happens with Eastern Orthodoxy, but more in line with like Ortho Bros, because again, most Eastern Orthodox guys are way more charitable than an Ortho Bro is.
Like Philip, feel sorry, yeah, but didn't mean to cut you off. I was just going to say, Philip, feel free to jump in as well, because like you've been on the channel with us before. We have discussed things like praying to saints or whatever. We disagreed with you, but we listened to what you said because we wanted to hear, from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Heaven forbid I was to bring on an Ortho Bro. It would, like, I have seen whenever they go on to these types of panels, it's like 5 minutes in before they crash out and call your mother every name under the sun.
Yep. Or drop the N-bomb.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's another one. But
Oh, that was a funny one. Let the reader understand.
yeah,
Yeah.
Well,
oh, and by the way, Philip, if I'm ever talking and you're getting, like, if you had something to say, just interrupt me. I'm always good with that. I know I babble on way too much. So
No, you're good. Yeah, I did want to piggyback off of something you said, Gabe, about the value of the logical arguments that Jay Dyer and others are making. I've always taken his channel and others like him as there's a certain purpose for it. You go there to learn something. And I know that he said himself, he's not here to be your spiritual father. He's not here to be a saint example for you, you know, something like that. He's not a life of a saint that you should model your life after. I think he gets that. And I think you were talking about, you know, some of the people, maybe the problem is in more of the following around him than himself. I think there's some truth to that, because I think there is a healthy way to use some of these guys. You don't have to emulate their character or their morals or whatever you don't think reflects Christianity. You can learn something from them for sure. A personal rule that I follow is if I'm ever not learning anything anymore from something online, I'll just walk away from it. Because, you know, what value are you getting by getting involved in debates if you're not learning anything? So I think that that's really important to keep in mind. There is a certain use. I think if you abuse those channels and you use them as, you know, this is the quintessential Orthodox Christian, I'm going to model my life in every way after this person, I think that's a problem on the viewers, and they're taking it way too far. And again, the cure to that is get involved with the local church, get a girlfriend. I'm a big believer in the female energy balancing out a lot of the orthobroism. But yeah, it's really important to connect with real people in the church, because that's how Jesus established it. He did not create an online community. He created a physical church. And I think that's the best way to cultivate yourself as an Orthodox Christian.
Yep. Paul, anything you want to add before we continue?
I think there's correct observations on all points. I think, like in all phenomena of collective, multi-person events or changes or whatever, you can find varying motivations. I think there are some cases where someone being kind of an orthobro is genuinely just a bit of an overzealous but otherwise genuine zeal for the truth. I think there are cases like that. I think there are also cases, and arguably more visibly common cases, of those who they think, and this is being charitable as well, they think they're being zealous for the truth, but with their conduct and with how they go about things, in their actual heart of hearts, they won't acknowledge it, but in their actual heart of hearts, their highest priority is getting the win, getting the W, rhetorically crushing their enemies and just feeling good and accomplished and feeling like a victor in that way. I think for many of them, that is the genuine motivation for why they are, why they convert is one thing, but why they become an orthobro in particular, that I think is a very common particular motivator. I think Kyle's right. There are some cases of just overzealousness for the truth. I think with others, they feign a zealousness for the truth to cover up for uncontrolled passions.
Absolutely. And Gabe, just before you hit play, just so you know, everything you guys just shared, female energy. Do better.
Yeah.
Do
Oh yeah,
better.
true.
Do better.
Sorry, I'll be a little bit more masculine for you next time, Stevie. 662.
Let's see. Gay. Your mum's whore. Debate me on my call show on my little Discord server.
Yep.
Very masculine.
I'll take things that I have heard about 90 times today. Anyway, go ahead and play, guys, because we are already at an hour and 12, and I know some of you guys want to hop off at the 2-hour mark, so let's try and get through a bit of this.
All right.
These young men see a true war, a true battle that is going on, the spiritual battle is that it is the Christians versus the world, is that the world is against Christ. And so they want to go to war with the world since the world is against Christ. But if this zeal is not tempered by patience and love, which normally takes time and life in the church, it doesn't instantly come, it can become honestly demonic. And the reason I say demonic is because if we have all of this head knowledge, but we're not living it out, because we can know the truth, but not actually live it out, not speaking it in love. I mean, that is the sin of the Pharisees. The Pharisee knew all of these good things, but they didn't have this, they didn't understand the spirit of it. And it can be especially bad and demonic when we are representing orthodoxy online, when we're on Twitter, when we're on YouTube. I would say that I'm chief among Orthobros in this manner. Is I've made huge mistakes YouTube on my approach, and I've tried to do a lot of work to delete any old videos that I think aren't good representations, and I'm still in this refinement process of not speaking the truth in love. That's very important. Orthodoxy isn't just a list of rules. It's about examples and mimicking those examples, mimicking the example of Christ, mimicking the example of his saints. The Orthodox.
I'm just going to pause it there. I'm not sure if he's going to keep going on or how to like word that, but I think that he made a very good point there. And by, pointing out that he was trying to think of a good way to word it. Sorry, I got really focused on because I wanted him to finish his point, and then I was like, "Is he finished with it yet?" And he just kept going. So my bad. But I thought he made a pretty good point there when he was saying that it can become something that is demonic and that it is representing orthodoxy in this really negative light, and he's having that very self-reflective picture. And I was quite surprised to hear him use the term demonic in reference to probably not just a behavior he himself as an Orthodox Christian participated in, but like as that whole mob mentality that we've been talking about, the Orthobro problem, which funny enough is his video topic too. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a lot of respect for him for even making that point, because I even felt bad being like, it's a cult group or whatever,
Yeah.
Or even comparing it to Islam. Like, I don't ever want to compare my fellow Christians to Muslims.
But you're not saying that about orthodoxy. We're talking
Yeah.
about... Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's, at least I hope I've made that pretty clear. But I'm not referring to Eastern Orthodoxy at all. Like I've had Eastern Orthodox friends message me thinking I was referring to Eastern Orthodoxy. I'm like, no, you guys are cool. It's not. I haven't made any theological arguments yet. All right, all I've done is say the Ortho Bros are being annoying on the internet. That's all I've done. Okay, and I think that's basically the premise of this video, is that they're really annoying and they're becoming a little bit of a problem on the internet, and they're not only representing Eastern Orthodoxy poorly, but they're also representing Christianity poorly. But that's just my take.
Yeah, that I agree. I have a lot of respect for Kyle too. He's a good friend of mine, both online and offline, and I can say, I can vouch for him. He's the real deal. He really walks this faith. He's very active at his church. He's starting his family. He just had his first child, and he's doing really good. And you can see that through the life of his videos. You can see him developing. And I would encourage, if there are Orthodox people watching this, let Kyle be an example of what you should be doing, right? Developing this turn your eyes to Christ, right? The saints, how did they live? How did they act? And let that guide you, because there has to be a development. Okay, you started off as an Ortho bro, great. Keep going and keep developing. Be like Christ. Put on Christ, right? Develop yourself in the Orthodox spirituality. I think that Protestants will appreciate that a lot, because it'll be much easier to engage with them, right? If they are acting a lot more like our saints. So yeah, I'm really glad that he made this video. I was also a little surprised of some of the things he said, but I agree with him completely.
All right. Any other comments?
Well, hang on. Let me add this in briefly just before Paul goes. I know Philip won't say it about himself, but I would also say look towards Philip and his conduct online as well. But more importantly, here's the thing. Paul is a regular public debater. He has a good spirit about him. He can take banter. He can give banter back. We don't care. Now, my main ministry is Islam. That's what I focus on. So I don't really do Protestant Catholic stuff. Paul's much more read and all that type of stuff. But I don't care if you come in here as an Orthodox guy, a Roman Catholic guy, and you challenge me on my doctrine. I want to be challenged on my doctrine. I want to have those conversations. But if you start freaking out like some of these ortho bros, I don't want anything to do with you. And you can call that female energy. You can call that whatever you want. I look at you like you are a child. An absolute child. But anyway, sorry, Paul, you were going to say something.
Yeah, great points there. And I think I was going to piggyback off. Yeah, I was going to kind of piggyback off of Philip, because I totally agree. Like, I've noticed the developing Kyle. I paid him out a little bit at the start of the stream, but when someone said he's the greatest theologian, I was sarcastically like, but that's only because, like, do I think his arguments against the Reformation are good? No, I don't think they're particularly good, to be nice about it. But I have absolutely noticed, in terms of his demeanor and how he does his content, that he's certainly become less of an orthobro, to the point where he's like not really one anymore in the way we're talking about. I think he has actually taken seriously his commitment to like the Eastern faith as such, like and what it entails, not just arguments and propositions, but actual difference in life. And in that light, I don't think it's a coincidence. Whereas on the one hand, pretty much all the ortho bros, they either have a very short stubble beard or no beard at all. But with Kyle, as he's developed, his beard's just gotten longer and longer. I noticed that myself. I'm like, and that's not just me being sarcastic. I genuinely wonder, because I know there's a bit of a thing even in like the East where like some saints will have these massive beards, and there's some, I don't know, maybe Philip can mention why, but there's some significance about like the length of beards or the size of it or whatever. Maybe Kyle's actually replicating something like that. But yeah, I've certainly noticed the same about him.
Well, Philip, just before you chime in on that, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's this thing in Orthodoxy, at least from some of the guys I've listened to, about, maybe I'm not articulating it right, but it's kind of about not really caring about your appearance, if that makes sense, like kind of just letting the hair grow long, all that sort of thing. Am I right on track with that or no?
Yeah, I mean, we have examples of spiritual life. We look at our monks, and they typically have long beards, long hair. Of course, they don't trash their bodies. They take care of themselves. But looking, with whatever the latest trend of style is not their priority. So I think there is a grain of truth to that. If you grow out your beard, it's more masculine, more natural. But of course, we have plenty of saints. You could look at our icons. They don't have beards. Saint Philip the Apostle, who's my patron saint, has no beard. So it's not a universal rule or something. But there is an association there. A lot of our priests will have beards. And so it is a thing, but it's not a hard, fast rule, of course.
Fair. Let me just pull up this comment, Gabe, before we continue. For many years, I always thought that the vast majority of EO folks were sanctimonious and hateful towards other Christians. The online behaviour of the Orthobros confirmed this for a long time. Knowing Frog Dude, he's probably going to follow that up in a minute, but we'll go ahead and react to the rest of the video first.
Yeah.
Approach to go to the saints, like Saint Isaac the Syrian says, zeal that is not according to knowledge is like a fire that burns the house instead of warming it. Is that this is what the devil does. He doesn't attack us where we're strong. He attacks us where we're weak. And the devil perverts and subverts something that is good. I think this happens with a lot of.
Yeah, I can pause that way we can pull up Frog Dude's comment real quick.
Did someone say turn the volume up? No.
No. I was saying I was going to pause that so we could put the Frog Dude's comment up. Yeah.
However, watching Orthodox Philip and recently visiting a local Greek Orthodox church, I have seen that there are many wonderful Eastern Orthodox folks. May the Lord Jesus bless you all. Yeah.
Right. Glory to God. Yeah. Yeah. It's, we're not lying. If you go to the churches, you will find very charitable people there.
Yeah. And that's the thing.
It happened.
Sorry, Gabe.
All
That's
right,
the thing. I just want to keep reiterating this too, because we have 136 watching, 137. It's climbing up. Praise the Lord. But what we want to iterate is we're not here to attack Eastern Orthodox people. We're here to critique the online Orthobro sphere, because it is very cultic.
Yeah, the Ortho Bros aren't people. We're not attacking them.
You know what I mean, bro. But like, it's this like, yeah, yeah. I'm way off topic, so I'll leave it there,
Yeah.
and we'll go back to the video anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
All right, cool beans.
with me that when you first come into the Orthodox Church, it's like, oh my gosh, look at all this evil and degeneracy in the world. You know, I have a standard to judge this evil. But once you're in the church, you start to realize, wait, I am the problem. I don't have love in my heart. I sin constantly. I have hatred towards my neighbor. I am bitter. I am resentful. I am just like everyone else in the world. I'm just like those people on the left that are bitter towards me. I'm just reciprocating that same bitterness. But as Christians, we are called to a higher standard. And that's why we say, Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me, a sinner. And when people make these claims against us, it's easy to be defensive and to find every reason to say, oh, that's not true, or trying to defend it. Because a lot of our critics actually have some true things to say about us. It may not always be true, but we should listen to our critics. And so important in the spiritual life is that's how you're actually going to grow, is to acknowledge.
Sorry, were you trying to gesture to me to say pause it?
Yeah.
I was looking at the other monitor and out of the corner of my eyes.
Yeah,
My bad. Sorry.
just before we go on, like, this is again the exact type of thing I mean.
Exempli gratia.
Whenever I say online that people keep proving the stereotype true, this is an example of it. The way you people are acting is very clear. You feel threatened by us. How?
Yeah. So yeah, we're so threatened that we're repeatedly saying this isn't an attack on orthodoxy. We actually respect many of your intellectual heavyweights. We're not attacking them. We're attacking a very vocal and bitchy sect. Yep. Yeah, that's threatened by orthodoxy. Yeah, totally. But like what you said, how it's like orthodoxy itself isn't even and like barely a thing in Ireland anyway. So how could you be threatened in particular? Similar, it's bigger in Australia, and it is growing a little bit, but it's largely still like a migrant thing.
Yeah.
It's so even the American phenomena is not the case here as well.
This is the thing. Like, I'm not going to focus on this any longer because this is just stupid. But like, this comment is exactly why I always say it's projection. Yeah. If anyone looks like they're feeling threatened, if 4 people on here not bashing orthodoxy, Philip himself is Orthodox. He can speak up if he feels uncomfortable. We're not bashing orthodoxy. What we're talking about is a very specific online, like, cultish group. But yet, George, you seem to be a little bit threatened by that. So, anyway, back to the video, guys.
Your sins. Acknowledge your sins before God and repent and cry over them. That's the Orthodox way, is realizing I am the problem. For a lot of us, we come to Orthodoxy because of the apologetics, because the Orthodox apologetics are incredibly good and we have the truth on our side. And apologetics is important. Apologetics alone isn't going to save your soul. The spiritual life and being united with Christ is. One of my first videos was on best Orthodox books, and all those books had a very big apologetic focus, but it really is important to cultivate an Orthodox spiritual life, because that is what is going to transform you. And a great way to do this is, like, if you're new, is to read the lives of the saints. There's lots of great books about this. Everyday Saints. Read some of the modern fathers, like Elder Ephraim, on the art of salvation, of like really getting that Orthodox phronema, not just knowing the Orthodox, apologetic points, but also knowing Orthodox spirituality. Saint Paisios, of course, a modern day saint, really good, Passions and Virtues. Yes, but reading the lives of the saints, this is one of my favorite. It's the prologue of Orate. It just has daily readings of the lives of the saints, and reading their lives, see how they lived, and reading that again and again every single day, and really living orthodoxy out is so important. And that's why the point of apologetics is to get people to go to church. And that's why I say that people go to church, talk to a priest, a life in the church. You need to have a life into the church, getting received into the church, going to confession as often as you can, receiving the Eucharist, the body and blood, receiving that as often as you can. Fasting your eyes, fasting from food. All these things are essential in the spiritual life and really cultivating Orthodox life. This is inevitably what happens if you take the faith seriously, even if you start as a orthobro who knows all these apologetics.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think he made a very good point there, as far as, like, I think a lot of the problem with the orthobros is they're missing, and I've already kind of reflected on this, where I'm like, I don't even think most of them are actually even Eastern Orthodox. But like a lot of these ortho bros, they're just, and I say a lot of them, and I mean all of them. Obviously, a lot of them are Eastern Orthodox, but when I'm thinking of like an Orthobro, usually it's not someone who is, again, representing Orthodoxy in a good and right manner, and they are usually just being a jerk or a pissant or whatever term you might want to use to refer to them, and they're just, running around, running their mouth a whole bunch. Whereas if they were someone who was like actually going under the spiritual development of Eastern Orthodoxy, they would probably not be that way. So I like how Kyle is actually giving them a little bit of a prescription here. He's not just pointing out the problem, he's also giving them something of more of a prescription to say, hey, you're here now. Now you have to like actually grow into this, and gives out books, just general advice. And I think his general advice is perfect. Is like the most general piece of advice he gave there was go to church, right? Mm-hmm. And that is, I think, the most important thing he could say there is to actually get up and go to church, because I think that even subtly highlights to the point that I made, where I think a lot of these young men are not going to church and they're not actually participating in the Orthodox faith. So that was my comment. I don't know what you guys had as far as that.
Everything you just said.
agree.
Cool. Sorry, Philip, right. I cut you off, brother. Go ahead.
No. That was worth cutting off. That's hilarious. But yeah, I agree. Okay, what you said. Yeah, I really like that he provided the prescription. I second all those books. The Prologue of Ord is basically a collection of saints' lives that are on a calendar. So they're like daily readings. So you can read the saints, how did they live? How did they act? How did they treat people? I think that's the gold standard for Orthodox Christians. So I think he's right on, directing people to those.
I will add as something of a slight aside, but also quite relevant. Something people should try to practice hard, especially in these matters of apologetics and debate and dispute or whatever, is to try to see parallels between the issue at hand and other related matters involving the same people, or other matters involving the same groups, even if they're not strictly related, because that can actually, by way of like triangulation, to speak by analogy, give you a more precise look at what the problem is in the background. And I think you can see that. And to be clear, I don't know where Philip, you land on this issue. So if you disagree, you can please do push back. But I see this same correlation with how the Orthobros are like this in the general online apologetics. And at the same time, they are also extremely anti-Ecumenism, to the point where they're basically in disharmony with their own hierarchy, especially the patriarchs. You have significant ecumenical efforts in the highest ranks of the Eastern churches, with Roman Catholicism, and in particular, one that's actually less known but a lot more advanced than Ecumenism with Rome is with the Orientals, to the point where particularly in Alexandria and in Antioch, I've been studying this a lot for something I have coming up, so I won't give all the details, but in Alexandria and in Antioch, you actually have some very strong, basically quasi-ecumenical agreements between the local Orthodox and Oriental groups, to the point where it's not full communion. They recognize they can't do that until all the patriarchs agree, lest they cause a schism. But they're doing as much as they can up to that point, to the point where they're functionally recognizing each other as brothers in Christ, more or less, and recognizing certain degrees of grace and sacramentology within each other's churches. So that's the actual lived reality of Orthodoxy. Even those other communions that don't have that yet, which is mostly because like Oriental Orthodoxy is mostly a thing in like where Antioch and Alexandria are, not as much like in Russia, for example, But even them, even the other patriarchates outside are like, look, we're willing to agree that we may just have a terminological disagreement with the Orientals, and the anathemas of Chalcedon in that regard don't hold anymore. But point being, they're actually striving for these ecumenical efforts to actually reunite and even to reconsider, look, maybe past assessments of each other in the past were wrong, and we really want to see if that's the case so that we can bring about Christian unity. But then you see the Orthobros, and they are extremely against all those efforts, extremely. And they basically, like, the only other group that really shares that opinion outside of individual bishops would be the Athonite monks, because they've historically detested all these efforts. But be that as it may, I see that as a very important parallel, and one that's quite illuminating, where I see that as like their efforts in dividing and attacking other Christians online of other traditions, and even fellow Orthodox whom they just don't like. It kind of spills over into how they view actual efforts in trying to bring unity back to the church. They basically stifle that in every way they can. Again, I don't know if you agree with me, Philip, but that's just how I see the parallel.
Unmute myself here. I definitely, there's truth to what you're saying, like what you're reporting. Certainly there are bishops and Orthodox clergy who are dialoguing and participating in certain events together. Like, that's definitely happening. And I do think it is related to the online movement, how much they're pushing back on this. I think in all of this, there's going to be different opinions on within the Orthodox communities. How far should you go? How far should you not go? So I think the best thing you could do for yourself as an Orthodox Christian is draw clear lines. I know if you come to my church, our priest will tell you that the Eucharist is only for Orthodox Christians, but then he offers you the blessed bread at the end of the service and he welcomes you. So obviously you're allowed to come into our church, you're allowed to have our blessed bread, you're allowed to talk with us, we love you, we'll dialogue with you, but this communion is not something we can share with you unless you're an Orthodox Christian. So I think having those kinds of lines is very helpful, because it gives you clear guidance on how to treat other people. Of course, if you're going to say, well, we can't have communion, therefore I'm not going to talk to you, I'm going to treat you really badly, obviously that's not the Orthodox way at all. I do think this dialogue, at least the opportunity for dialogue, is a really good thing. I think Catholics and Orthodox and Orientals and Protestants should be dialoguing, because there's nothing wrong with talking. There's nothing wrong with learning or sharing. I think it would be a really bad thing if we closed ourselves off and made ourselves very difficult to engage with. But of course, never at the expense of our own faith, our own values. And I think that's why, I would describe it, there's a good ecumenism and a bad ecumenism. Bad is the one that you cross the line, you're sharing services together, you're, doing Eucharist together, in some cases, maybe. That's too far, of course, because there is a substantial difference in the faith between these communions that, if you have communion, it's a false communion. It's a false unity. There's not a unity in substance. So the Orthodox have a very high standard of unity. And I know people have pointed fingers at us and said, oh, you guys have Orthodox churches that aren't in communion, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's just because we have a very high standard. But the churches that are not in communion, to like Moscow and Constantinople, they believe 99.999% of the same things. That there's this one small thing, is enough to where we're going to take a temporary break from communion. I mean, that's just reflects the high standards we have. So I think dialogue is good, and trying to work things out, being open to working things out is very good. Even Mark of Ephesus showed up at the Council of Florence, right? What was he doing at the Council of Florence if he didn't want to talk to the evil Latins? He at least tried. He gave an effort. So I definitely don't think being open to unity is a bad thing, and I think most of the clergy feel the same way.
Fair. But before you do, Gib, I want to get through a few comments.
Oh yeah.
I just wanted to say, guys, we have been thoroughly refuted with everything we have said, and we should all stop being gay. Yep.
Well, that female energy.
Female energy with all the coping and stuff.
I think the female energy comment was the best.
Guards, take away this gay Irishman.
That's right. Yep. Now, here is a good question. We'll come on to this in 1 second. So I'm going to bring it up and then I'll come back to it. But don't understand what the actual problem is outside of Twitter. Then how could you even qualify? I'm assuming what this problem is. Orthobro conduct is worse in comparison to the larger Christian community. I'm going to come back onto that because I want to address this first. Pope Respector, I will be having other panels in the future where I can happily bring you up. I'm not bringing up right now because this was pre-planned in advance with these guys, so I'm not bringing anyone else up tonight. So, but you're welcome on the channel anytime, apart from right now. Um, what else have we got? But a banter between Gabe. Okay, we're caught up. So that's a good question then, guys. Let's address this briefly because I think in like the last 20 minutes we have, we're probably not going to get through much more Kyle's video. So why don't we talk about this for a little bit and then we will wrap up anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this. There we go. We are back up. Right. So let me ask this one more time, and then whoever wants to jump in first can. Don't understand what the actual problem is outside of Twitter. Then how could you even qualify that this problem, Orthobro conduct, is worse in comparison to the larger Christian community? Paul, do you want to kick us off, bro?
Yeah, happily. I do think it's a bit of a. There are objections like that in that species of, oh, well, what about these other guys? It is, I think, with respect to whoever asked it, I don't know where he or she is coming from, his or her disposition. It's a bit of a whataboutism, in my opinion. Because in the end, whether you can point to other groups who claim to be Christian who are either as bad or worse than Orthobros, what conclusion are we supposed to draw from that? Therefore, we can't talk about a particular problem with Orthobros and such. We can only talk about what is quantitatively or qualitatively the worst by some survey. It's a bit silly because in the end, why do we talk about the Orthobros and not about whatever X other group? Well, because it's a more proximate problem to us. It's the more in our circles online with intertraditional apologetics and polemics. The Orthobro issue is one of, if not the most proximate problems in terms of little sects of like cultish behavior in high profile apologetics. Now, for that exact same reason, our and particular layman apologists pointing out of Muslim behavior is a very big thing he talks about, because that's also very proximate. So he talks about that a lot.
Yep.
But if there's something like, oh, well, what about I don't know, what about the behavior of like Stephen Anderson's group towards Catholics or whatever? Well, there is an independent fundamental Baptist Protestant apologist friend, Jean the Baptist. He goes on them all the time. But second, for most of us, like people like Anderson's crazy antics and his church, it's quite remote from the scene we're in. You could say the same for Scientology, for certain like Mormon cultish groups. Some are more proximate, and so they will attack Mormons more directly, or Mormonism, and whatever other examples you can point to. The point is that, like, look, we see the Orthobro thing is a very proximate one to us, and it's very relevant to what we're doing, and we see it as a big problem, so we want to talk about it. That's it. If you can point to some other group that is allegedly even worse in their behavior, then okay, whoop-de-doo. That doesn't change the fact that we rightly see the Orthobro problem as a problem and we want to address it. Simple.
Yeah. Also, it's just a bit of a fallacy too, though, but to say that because it's only online, therefore these guys are only acting this way online. No. If how you act online will primarily show how you act offline. And the thing is, people aren't the worst they can be online because they're aware there's consequences. So this idea, like Paul already said, it is a whataboutism, but it's also it's a fallacy just out and out, because just because something's taking place online, are we not meant to critique it? Are we not meant to have an opinion on it? And whenever it does come in, now Muslims try to dox me all the time, right? But if it was coming from the Orthobro crowd, and I already pointed out the example, Alex Soren even had to put out a statement because a lot of his crowd and followers were doxing Ruslan's family. Or just because it's online, we shouldn't talk about it. That's very, very silly. Gents, anything else you want to say? But before you do, apparently we all look mad, and we're apparently getting cooked.
Oh yeah, seething.
Yep.
Totally
Ah.
seething.
Yep.
Oh man, I can't believe I'm getting so cooked.
Yeah, I was floored by the argument from Paul, you say that the apostles didn't venerate icons. But you see, 16th century Japanese. I never recovered. I never recovered from that.
And Crypto Crusader, as to what I am, apparently I am cooked. So hopefully that answers your question.
Very cooked.
You're
But
still
no,
very wise, so I don't think so.
to kind of go back to that question. Oh, we know if you want below this chat, we can tell. But yeah, no. To go back to the comment that the person brought up where they were asking
Yeah.
a question.
Hang on,
They're
I'll bring it
saying
back up.
basically if it's only taking place on Twitter, YouTube, and the internet sphere. That's the internet has become the town square for the entire world.
Yes.
It is where we get our news. It is where we get our politics. It is where we get our religious information a lot anymore. Which is it the best place? No, but is it the town square? It's just like if you went into your neighborhood city center, right? That's what the internet is, and especially on platforms like X or Twitter. That is kind of what they're designed to be, is the town square. So if we have a giant group, because to act like they're a tiny group, especially online, is to be an understatement. I mean, they flood in and they will get 500 likes on a little reply that they throw out, let alone a main post that they put out there. That's a lot of likes for a post, quite frankly, or at least for a reply, at least in our sphere. But so that they are a massive group of people that are meant to represent Jesus Christ. And if they are representing Jesus Christ by destroying and tearing apart other Christians and by using, poor reasoning and just to make a fool of Christianity per se, then I think that it's in all of our interests as Christians to correct them and to take a step to address that.
Yep. Philip, I want to hear your thoughts on this. I just want to answer this very quickly. Crypto, my friend, I don't reveal that, not because it's something I'm hiding, but Muslims tend to try and use interdenominational arguments, so I don't allow them that, so I don't reveal it. I mean, it's kind of out there for a lot of people, but for those that don't know, I'm trying to keep it chill. Would you say, Paul?
Smart, like actually a smart tactic.
Yeah. Philip, why don't you go ahead and address that question as well, and then I see we've got a question we could probably wrap up with.
Yeah, I think you guys showed in the beginning that you're responding to experiences that you had with people, right? So it's like I think that is something quantifiable. You've had interactions repeatedly with people who have a certain kind of behavior, so I think it's valid to respond to that. I don't think that any of us is blanketing, a huge number of Orthodox Christians are like this, but there is a group on there. Even if we can't point to them, you guys have interacted with them enough to know, okay, this is a pattern that's happening. So I think that to some level it is quantifiable, and there's nothing wrong with talking about your experience. Like I said, I had bad experiences with atheists plenty of times. I've mostly had very good interactions with Catholics and Protestants and Orthodox online so far on my channel, thank God. But
brother, they're coming for you now.
Yeah, I'm expecting it. So, anyways, but so far so good, thank God. But even if it comes, it's I think it's experience that we're reacting to, and then I'm just here kind of to say. Not all Orthodox are, behaving in the same way. Some of us try very hard and put in an effort to walk the saintly life, and it's not easy, and we do have passions. I don't remember who said it here, but someone was talking about there's passions, that are manifesting through this behavior. That's very true. We have passions, and we do struggle with those. So pray for us. That's what I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, gents, I want to be respectful of your time. We're going to try and get off before we hit the 2-hour mark. But question here from Froggood says, question for the panel: what are y'all's opinions on ecclesial anxiety, and how do y'all think the concept plays into more comments came in, plays into the behavior of the Orthobros? So I'd maybe split that in two. So, Philip, why don't you answer the second half? And Gabe, you can maybe touch on that as well. And Paul and I will maybe touch on the first question about ecclesial anxiety.
Yeah, with pleasure. So, ecclesial anxiety, TLDR, it's basically something of a psychological phenomenon where someone is becoming really unstable and fearful and paranoid over whether they're in the right church communion or not. They believe in Christ, they have faith and all that, but they're paralyzed by fear to a significant degree of whether they're in the right exact place to follow Christ. That's what ecclesial anxiety is, and it's a very legitimate thing. What rational import, if any, it has in terms of arguments? It can be much, it can be none. It doesn't matter, but it is fundamentally a pastoral issue. It's fundamentally a pastoral and a spiritual issue that, in the end, people with it, they less so need full rational arguments going through books worth of genealogies and whether this guy did the valid ordination for that guy or whatever. It's first and foremost an issue of, in my humble opinion, Satan trying to dislodge them and their trust of Christ, that their faith in the Lord and in His saving grace, that He wouldn't lead them to the truth, that it's contingent on them stepping inside the right church building. And that, of course, is not to throw aside all arguments for validity in that. Like, as one who holds to an ordinary sense of apostolic succession, I think one is much safer being in an Anglican church than in a Baptist church, for example. I'll be totally big with that. As regards questions of what God would do with a genuine believer who's never had the opportunity to go to like an Anglican church with full validity of sacraments and all that, open question. I have hope and confidence God would have certain degrees of mercy, but who knows? It becomes speculation in the end.
Yep.
That's fundamentally what it is. I have a lot to say about how it applies to Orthobros, but obviously I'll leave that to Philip and Gabe.
Yep, sounds good. I'll keep my part very short and sweet as well. I maybe about 6-7 years ago had a real bad case of ecclesial anxiety. I just saw that. Don't ever do that on this channel again, Paul.
You asked for it, mate. You asked for it.
I did was saying that actually, but I had a real bad case of ecclesial anxiety. I was walking with the Lord for many years, was loving my faith. I was praying. I participated in fasting. I was working with online groups doing ministry. I was doing street ministry. I was doing apologetics on the street. And whenever you start looking into people that make claims like this is the one true church and this one's the one true church and that one's the one true church, you are now looking at multiple churches. And I'm not just talking about Orthodox and Catholic and everything else. I didn't struggle with this aspect, but I'm saying like you get Jehovah Witnesses claim they're the one true church, Mormons claim they're the one true church. Obviously, we discount those two, but what I'm saying is there becomes a real anxiety that washes over you that, wait, what if I am not in the right church? Is this going to affect my salvation? And that's exactly what Paul said. It becomes a real attack of the enemy that, hey, look, you are now outside salvation because guess what? You're not in communion with the one true church. How do you know what that one true church is? And again, like Paul says, I'm not doing the whole thing of church doesn't matter. It absolutely does. I have my convictions because I'm convicted of them. Paul has his convictions because he's convicted of them. Philip, Gabe, we wouldn't be in our respective churches if we weren't in them. Now, ultimately, could someone be right and the rest of us wrong? Sure. But I know and I trust my Lord that those that genuinely seek Him, I personally don't think they're going to be cast out because they are not in the right church. Now, again, I know, Philip, you might have a completely different take on that. That's fine. I'll let you share that now in a second. But that is also another reason why I do not let Muslims know what my denomination is, because they love playing different groups off against each other. So you will see me on this channel having people like Philip on. You will see me having Catholics on, Anglicans on, Baptists on, whatever. Because I'm ecumenical in the sense that I will attack the actual cults with other brothers and sisters that I consider in Christ, does not mean that I don't have disagreements with them and even strong differences with them. But when it comes to ecclesial anxiety, Frog Dude, it's real. It hits people, and as Paul said, it's a real pastoral thing. So get into a good church, speak with your pastor, your priest, your bishop, whatever it is. Study church history, work through it. Do not be intimidated into converting to a different stream of Christianity just out of fear. And unfortunately, again, it's not to say whether it's right or it's wrong, but I think you get a lot of converts that come out of evangelicalism and they just want something more rooted in something strong, masculine. It ties back into church history. And I think that's valid in a lot of ways. But I often think that the motives can be a little but I'll not go too much further than that. Gabe, Philip, whatever one of you guys want to take the second question, go for it.
You're good to you're good to go, Philip. I'll let you go first.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that underneath the actions, there is a genuine desire to see people come into the Orthodox Church. In our ecclesiology, we do believe that the Orthodox Church is the church, the visible body of Christ on earth. Unfortunately, that looks like for some people to point their fingers at other Christian bodies and to say, okay, you're all heretics, you're all going to hell, whatever. But that's not that's not our job, right? Within our ecclesiology, it's not our job to point fingers and condemn everybody to hell, even though we have this belief in our church body as being the Church of Christ. So it might be a little bit of a misapplication of our ecclesiology, and they feel the stakes are really high. You've got to be in the Orthodox Church, so we've got to act very extreme so that you will come over. There may be some of that going on, but the sort of balanced path would be. It makes me think of when the papal legates dropped the papal bull in Constantinople, excommunicating the Patriarch of Constantinople. He responded with, "Let God be the judge." And I think that is a more healthy. He didn't immediately jump into ecclesial anxiety, say, oh no, what if I'm not in communion with the church, blah blah blah. He said, well, as far as I am convicted, this is the church. I'm going to stick with it and let God be the judge. And I think that's maybe something that people need to learn is you're actually doing harm by trying to go really extreme to drag people into the Orthodox Church. It's better to be a positive witness for the faith. Because you want people to come to it willingly. You don't want to make it, you better come in here, you're going to hell. That's certainly not the best way to spread our faith. But yeah, I do believe for some people there's probably the stakes are high because of that ecclesiology. I do think there might be some truth to that.
Yeah.
Okay. I think so. As far as why the Ortho Bros tend to. Hold on, let me reread the question real quick. It is, and how does anxiety?
I'm trying to find it here. Sorry.
Oh, I found it. How do you all think the concept plays into? Okay, yeah, I think it kind of goes into the primary claims of Eastern Orthodoxy. Funny enough, which is that they are the one true church, right? That's their primary claim. They would say that they are the one true church, and the Roman church schismed, and that from the Roman church you have all the other Protestant churches, right? And because of that, that would be kind of how they're playing part in there. And that's why they might be so extra passionate about Eastern Orthodoxy also, is that, that's the entire claim of the tradition is they are the one true church, right? It's kind of like in a similar way to the Roman Catholics. It's just with the Roman Catholics, they also, you have historians within their tradition, and forgive me, I don't have them off the top of my head, but that would even look at, Eastern Orthodoxy and say, well, they've held to the faith better. And then, in Eastern Orthodoxy, the liturgy is everything. It's what you're holding to. And I mean, so I would say that when a lot of people have that ecclesial anxiety, they might find themselves going into Eastern Orthodoxy because it seems like it's very confident and it fills in those little soft spots that they might have, because admittedly within Protestantism, we don't have a lot of great resources on that. I mean, we do, but they're usually really old and kind of buried under scholarship anymore. So, hopefully we'll be getting more of that stuff out there. That way, some people can give Protestantism a chance. But no, I would say, so as far as like the Orthobros, I think that that's a lot of the reason why they tend to go, well, being Ortho part of the bro, the Eastern Orthodox. And then you see that extra confidence that is exuded by kind of their thought leaders, i.e. guys like Jay Dyer, Alex Soren, Cleave to Antiquity, and you could go on and on and on. Like, one of the things that they always will push, because a lot of them, like Benjamin Michael, I think is what he changed his name to, Jay Dyer, they were all part of like that big blood sports scene. Andrew Wilson, all part of the big blood sports scene. And the entire thing in that scene is confidence. And it doesn't matter if, like, it's all about being confident and like pinning people into holes and pinholing people, basically. And well, when you're watching Jay Dyer, Andrew Wilson, you're watching them do that to people seemingly effortlessly because they are really good at it. It adds more to that confidence, and that leads you to kind of fall into the orthobro position. But that's just my take on it. I obviously could be completely out of left field.
Yep. Paul, I'm not going to scroll back and find this, but essentially he thanks you for your work that you do. He has recently, he's in the process of converting to Anglicanism, and he credits you for that. So.
Okay, so I did see that comment, and I really liked. You could probably, if you go back to when he gave it, you could see me smiling in the corner of my screen because I was reading. I really much liked it, but I didn't know that he was going to Anglicanism because of me. So that's genuinely a huge compliment. That honestly makes my day. I'm very happy to hear that.
Praise the Lord. Right, I just want to say one final thing, guys, before I let you guys plug your stuff and sign off. First of all, thank you guys for being part of this. Even for all you guys that were in the comments trolling with your cope and your seed or whatever, it does not bother us. Keep it going, right? The only other thing that I would say about this is be an Orthodox Christian if you want. Stop being an Orthobro. It's dumb. You're following a cult, and it's just stupid. But anyway, that's enough from me. Paul, why don't you give where people can follow you? And by the way, let me just give Paul a quick plug before he does. Paul is a dude to go and support. He's got Paul, you're on, it's your own website, isn't it? Where people can support you.
It is, yeah. theotherpaul64.com.
Yep. So before he plugs himself, what I would recommend is go and get this brother's content. Become part of his supporters. Contribute to him. He is doing a lot out there for Protestant apologetics. Mainly Anglican, but at the same time, you can pick up good arguments from the brother. Go over and support him. Anyway, Paul, go ahead and plug your stuff, and then I'll move on to you other gents.
Well, mate, that's very nice that you plugged me like that. Thank you heaps, especially as I am trying to make this basically a job now. Yep. I've kind of taken the leap of bringing down my work hours to make that happen. And by God's grace, it's happening slowly but surely. So in that light, people can mainly watch me on the YouTube channel, The Other Paul. Just search it up on YouTube. You'll find me easy. I'm getting very close. I am only 500 subscribers away from 10,000. So please, people, help me get over there. Because once that happens, I'm going to have a massive 10,000 subscriber party, chill stream. And I'll also promise that I'll upload some kind of song cover when it happens. So that will happen. And in that light as well, I'll echo again the support thing. You can go over to my website, theotherpaul64.com. It's a blog as well, so I'll sometimes put posts up there every now and then. But it's especially good for people who either want to just give a one-time donation in the main tab for that, or you can become a monthly supporter and you get some cool benefits with that. I just added another benefit where I've been trying to think of the problem of, well, on the one hand, I want my content to be very high quality intellectually, but on the other hand, that means there could be big gaps between videos. So how can I make content more frequent? So I've just created the supporter benefit of how supporters can go to the main supporter hub on the website. When you're a supporter, you can enter a hub called the Synod, where you can see me put exclusive posts, post yourself, chat with other supporters and what have you, and other benefits there. you can, as a supporter, now put up questions intended for a Q&A video. So I hope to, whenever there's a week without a mainstream normal video, I'll take questions that the supporters themselves give in the synod, and I'll just have videos dedicated to that in a more relaxed, less scripted, but still substantial way. So that's a cool new benefit. You get other awesome benefits as well. Go over to the website, you can see what they are. Too many to list here. And I'm also on Rumble. I haven't uploaded to there a little bit because I'm still kind of trying to find what specifically will I post there. Maybe there'll be some more spicy topics that aren't YouTube friendly that I'll eventually upload some stuff there too. But you can find that in my description as well. Just go to the link there. And yeah, that's me. So thank you very much for having me on again.
Awesome. Thank you, bro. Gabe, we'll go with you, and then we'll let Philip as our guest as well check out last.
Alrighty, well, obviously I'm Gabe. You can find me at basically any social media at GabeZD. That's YouTube, X, Instagram, and Threads are going to be trinityapologetics.com. And you can find me on those platforms. You can check out my Bible app, trinitybible.app. And you can just use the free resources. There you go.
Mm-hmm. Philip, over to you, my friend.
Yeah, so if you are affected by the Orthobro movement in any way, positive or negative, I would still suggest going to an Orthodox church, talk to the people there, and get a more balanced experience of Orthodoxy. That's my plug for, the within the topic. But my YouTube channel is Orthodox Philip, same as my name on the screen. And I make topics about icons, especially early Christian iconography. I'm very interested in that topic. I do talk about icon veneration. I like to go deep. They're not shallow. That I like to unpack the fathers, even in their original languages, go into original languages, archaeology. I quote a lot of scholars on these topics, so I'm not just pulling things out of a hat. I also am a big Septuagint fan, so I make some videos about the Septuagint. But if you're interested in iconography, early Christian iconography, biblical topics, go ahead and give me a subscribe. I'd love to have you there.
Awesome. I genuinely thought at the start of that you were about to launch into, if you've been affected by an Orthobro, you may be entitled to a claim. So... just putting that out there, my friend.
I know. Anyway, I worded, okay. Well, maybe. Who knows?
Anyway, folks, I'm going to end the stream here because I am off to cope and seethe and get my feminine energy up. So I will see you all next time. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for all taking part in the comments. And stay tuned. We've got some very cool debates coming up, which Mr. Orthodox Philip may be part of as well. So anyway, folks, good night and God bless. You gents stick around for a second.
Good night. God bless everyone.